The purpose of these videos is to orient you to what components look like and how you act on them. If you haven't watched the Watch Me First video, please do that first, as it lets you know what to expect. As you read in Chapter 5, quotations are central to ATLAS.ti in a way that's different from other Cactus packages. Only defined quotations are components, not the segments of data associated with them. I'll thoroughly explain this important point, and then go on to demonstrate how quotations are similar regardless of kind of data source. Quotations are usually created manually, but when importing rather than adding data, then they're created automatically. They can be of any size, and they can overlap. Then I'll go on to the actions taken on quotations. As usual, we'll leave the common actions until the project as a whole video and focus on the actions specific to quotations, linking quotations to codes and memos, hyperlinking quotations to other quotations, and resizing and renaming quotations. Quotations are an area in which ATLAS.ti works differently from other Cactus packages, with, I think, great benefit. Quotations are central in ATLAS.ti because when you create them, they become independent things which can be acted on, not simply delineations of data. As you read in Chapter 5, this is central to how ATLAS.ti works. I'll start with the most basic example. I'll open a text document, find some text I haven't yet coded. Perhaps this sentence is of interest. I told Dr. Quinn about it and told him what I felt, and he agreed. I don't know if he was just being nice, but that's what he said. Perhaps this is a study about communication between students and professors, and this is of interest. So I can make this into a quotation. The number 144 means it's the 44th quotation I made in the first document. And this quotation has now become a component and appears in the list of quotations in the Quotation Manager. I'll go to the Home ribbon and open the Quotation Manager and scroll down until I find quotation number 144. Here it is, and that is the quotation. Here is the text associated with it, but that is not the quotation. This item here is the component itself. Because later in the study, you may be reviewing this quotation and decide the context of the communication with the professor is needed to compare this statement with other similar ones from other students, and so you want to increase the amount of data. And you simply do that by dragging, say, to here, and the quotation immediately is resized. But this has not changed the fact that this is the quotation as before. It's now just associated with a different amount of data. This is not a subtle distinction. It's one of the starkest differences between strategies and tactics when using ATLAS.ti. At the strategy level, the associated data is what's critical in the meaning of the quotation. But at the level of tactics, what is critical is the existence of this quotation as a component that can be acted on, and the data associated with it is very much secondary. Of course, when you're thinking about the analytic task at the strategy level and making sense of this data, then it is the other way around. You're not thinking about components, and this is primary. As you've read, or will read in Chapter 6, going back and forth between these two mindsets is a key aspect of harnessing ATLAS.ti powerfully. But in these orientation videos, we're just dealing with the tactics level. So coming back to that level, a quotation is a component that can be acted on, but the actual lines of text are not components that can be individually acted on. The best example to make this clear is to look at overlapping quotations. In ATLAS.ti, quotations can overlap because each quotation is independent. Let's find a pair of overlapping quotations. Here's a pair. Here is one quotation, and there is the text associated with it, and there is another quotation and the text associated with it. And as we can see, there is some text that's common to both, and it is this sentence here. It's the last sentence of the first quotation and the first of the second quotation. ATLAS.ti knows these two quotations overlap, and this fact can be used in interrogations of the coded data that we'll look into in a later video. But the data that is common to the two overlapping quotations that I've highlighted is never available independently to be extracted or outputted because the data itself is not a component. If we wanted to act just on this common data, we would have to create a quotation separately for those sentences of data. So just to repeat, because it is so central, only defined quotations are a component to be acted on, and data is associated with them. So far, we've looked at the standard manual way of creating quotations. But you also know from the Documents Orientation video that when importing data from an Excel spreadsheet or from Twitter, EndNote, and so on, quotations are created automatically as part of the import process. For example, here is a document that was created automatically as part of importing an Excel spreadsheet containing survey data. It contains 2 quotations, and both quotations were created automatically from the imported spreadsheet. But once they've been created, they are identical to manually created quotations. They appear in the quotation manager, and we can modify the amount of data associated with each. So for example, I can select this one and decide that only the last part of the sentence is necessary to be part of this quotation. Other types of document work according to the same principle. If we look at a PDF file, some of it is text and can be selected and turned into quotations in the usual way. But often there are graphical elements in a PDF file. Here is a table, and I can select a rectangle of it and create a quotation of just that rectangle. This is similar to how you create quotations in other graphical documents. Here is a graphical document, a picture of a country house. And if I wish to make a quotation of this window, maybe this is a study of architectural elements, I can make a quotation of that portion of the document. And just to reiterate how you act on quotations, not on data, this graphical quotation is dealt with just as any other quotation. If I want to export it, I come to the Quotation Manager and I find the quotation, which is number 11.3, the third quotation I've made in this document. The first 2 I deleted when practicing making this video. And here it is, and the data is previewed, just in the same way that the data of a textual quotation is previewed. Coming back to the graphical quotation, I can export it in a report, and my report shows that portion of the graphical document exported in the same way as a textual quotation would be exported and the lines of text would appear there. Quotations in audio and video files are created in a similar manner, although obviously the mechanics are slightly different. Here is a video file. And as we looked at in the Documents video, we can focus on a particular area of the video. And this portion is active here, and we can play until we find something we're interested in.
I like people just to
yes,
feel
those few
happy.
seconds are very interesting, so we can drag that down with our mouse and create a video quotation in exactly the same way as we create other quotations. Now let's close by looking at some of the actions specific to quotations. Quotations can be linked to codes or to memos. We'll cover that in the orientation to coded quotations. Quotations can also be linked directly to other quotations. These are called hyperlinked quotations, and we'll cover that in the separate video on hyperlinked quotations. Quotations can be of any size, and that's determined by the purpose of the analytic task at the strategy level. A quotation can be of any length, a single letter, a word, a phrase, several sentences, whatever you wish. One technique that is sometimes useful is to create a quotation that is the entire extent of the document. I'll press Ctrl-A, which is the simplest way to select the entire document, and then if I create a quotation for that, I now have a quotation straddling the entire length of the document. This has the effect of, as it were, turning a document into a quotation, and that's sometimes useful for certain sophisticated techniques. All that remains is renaming quotations. When quotations are created, they are given default names. For text quotations, these are the first words of the quotation text, as you can see here. Usually the name of the quotation is not used for anything, and we just leave it as it is, as the defaulted first words of the text. But if the translation of an analytic task calls for having quotations named in a more meaningful way, then this can be done. For graphic and audio and video quotations, like here and PDF quotations, these quotations are simply given the name of the document they come from, and it's common to want to name these quotations more meaningfully. Renaming the quotation is simply done by going here and renaming it for something more meaningful, say the first part of the chart, and that becomes the name of the quotation. This completes the orientation to quotations, and we now invite you to read about another component in Chapter 5 and then watch its component orientation video.